Thanks for joining us for Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. According to a new study, African-American children are twice as likely as white children to be victims of child abuse. They become victims of neglect or physical or sexual or emotional abuse. Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. Child abuse in the black community. Now here we go again. Black folk are the worst, the highest rates of HIV, we got the highest this, we got the highest that. Is this more blame the Negro syndrome, Reverend Coates?
I can't even.
Here we go again. Or is this real?
No, it's real, and it's time for the Negroes, African Americans, to recognize that our community is in crisis. We are in crisis in every area, and if we have 78% of our homes are headed by a single parent, mostly a woman, then we should expect for there to be
So wait, let me be clear here. You're telling me that women are are sexually abusing our children, are mentally abusing our children, are physically abusing and emotionally abusing our children at twice the rate of anybody else? Is that what you're telling me?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that women are abusing, but a lot of times the women invite the abusers into the home.
Oh, hey,
in the form of a boyfriend, in the form of a transient, what do you call them, a serial sperm donor.
Donella Martin, tell me what abuse is. Tell me what child abuse is.
Well, abuse is when you basically deny a child the right to, grow into their full potential. When you verbally abuse them, when you emotionally abuse them, when you physically abuse them, when you sexually abuse them. The sad thing is that in so many of our families, a lot of our behavior, which would be construed as abuse by larger society in our communities, in our households,
is acceptable?
It's acceptable.
Yeah. Is that true, Earth Jallow?
That's very, very true. It's horrible.
I ain't seeing them veins pop out. So I don't believe
They're coming.
Them veins, them veins that got to pop out.
When you have 78% of the households headed by African-American women, then all of that onus that we discussed in a previous show is
What's that word?
Onus. Don't
Spell
start.
it.
Okay.
Here we
but
go
it is
again.
placed on her, and she is depressed. She's angry. She's angry because she's raising those children alone. She's angry because she hates her job.
So she starts abusing?
So it's adultism.
So she starts abusing?
So she may start to verbally abuse her children. We've all heard it. I've heard it even in the grocery store in public.
All right, for example, give me an example.
Get your little nappy-headed black over here before I smack you.
That's abuse?
Yeah, that's abuse.
That's correcting behavior.
That is abuse.
Wait a minute.
That is
Wait a
abuse.
minute. Who's setting the standards?
That's
Us
abuse.
or somebody else?
That's
not
abuse.
abuse.
That's my
abuse.
standard.
And that's
That's
not,
abuse.
and that's not
Wait
a
a
good
minute, hold on,
standard.
Reverend. If that child is over there acting a fool,
Nope.
and that mother says, get your blankety over here,
not what I'm
that
saying.
is not abuse.
That's not what I'm
We
saying.
have to look at,
That's
we
not what
have
I'm
to
saying.
look at where that comes from. That comes from a legacy of slavery. We were violently abused, so we abused our children.
Wait a minute,
Not
whose
only
standards
that,
of abuse are we following?
The same standards that was passed down to you by the slave
Absolutely.
master
Right.
and his children.
No,
Right.
because I had to develop my own standard of what abuse was. My household wasn't all that gravy. So when I came up, I feel like as a child I was abused. And so when I had
Who
children,
told you were abused?
I know I was. I
Who
felt
told
it.
you
I
you were
felt
abused?
it.
She told
I
herself.
felt it.
She told herself she was abused.
Because she didn't get her way.
No, it's not about getting your
If we
way.
look at
Mental and verbal abuse to children are real. That's what I had to endure.
I'm not saying it's not real.
And that's what I endured. So you can't speak to my experience.
Wait a minute, at what standard, what do we do, Reverend?
I just tried to tell you.
What are we defining as abuse here?
We have no standards, because the
That's
standards,
the problem.
the standards that we might have had in the church, we've abandoned the church, and the church has abandoned teaching standards because it's on a prosperity kick. That's
my point.
And now we have absent
When
standards.
have black people said, this is our standard for anything? This is our standard for mental abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse. When have we said
Collectively,
this?
it may not have been done, but individually, yes, we're doing it.
And before we even decide to get these standards, we need to educate ourselves on what we want our children to be. When we look at our children, how they have become so non-compassionate, so able to take the life of another child that they grew up with in the same neighborhood, they're able to alienate with neighborhoods and kill someone on the next block. We have failed, to implement standards, and I have to ask ourselves, do we even know which standards to implement?
You see, I think what we are doing, we're just looking at what somebody else says is abuse, like we always do, and trying to fit ourselves into it, and then we are judged by those standards.
There may be some of that, but I don't think that's
because when
complete
I
picture.
decided to have my children, I know what abuse is. I had to make a conscious, everyday decision not to say and not to treat my children the way I was treated because I know how that was.
So when I correct the behavior of a child, I'm abusing that child?
No, not corrective behavior. It depends on how you correct that behavior.
It depends.
Do you punch him in the head or do you talk to him?
Sometimes they might need to be smacked upside the head.
Not upside the head. No, not upside the head.
Did we get smacked upside the head?
Look at you.
A child.
Look at you.
What do you mean, look at me?
There's a difference between spanking a child and abusing a child.
Is spanking and discipline child abuse? Up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari, Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. Child abuse is a serious public health issue. In addition to the moral implications, child abuse is associated with higher rates of mortality, obesity, HIV/AIDS, infection, and mental health problems. Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. Now, we are looking at something that creates all of these maladies. Did y'all like that word?
Maladies.
Yes.
All right,
What does that mean? Can you spell it?
No. Don't you go there. M-A.
Okay.
All right. But is it true? Does child abuse lead? How does child abuse lead to HIV/AIDS? Explain that to me.
Because
that's a stretch, isn't it?
Well, when you create a child to be dysfunctional based on how you treated it or how you did not nurture that child.
They're
looking for something else.
So child abuse, when it comes out as sexual abuse, leads to those kind of things.
Or
Is that right?
poor choices are bad behavior.
So does that lead you to become a criminal because you abused a child?
It very well may.
Are people using that as an excuse?
It very well may.
Isn't it? You know, as a child, I was abused, therefore I killed 70,000 people. Come on.
You know, right?
That's a serial killer. That's another issue.
Right.
Most people who drop these bombs and plan these wars were not abused as children.
Right.
So what is you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they were
That is
raised,
not
but that's
necessarily
something else. I
predictive.
call that demonic, okay? But there's another set
You
of
call it what, Reverend?
Demonic.
Spell that.
Okay. Yeah, I can spell that one well. But there's what we face is something totally different because our set of circumstances are different from anybody else's in the world. What we experienced here in America is unlike any experience that any people
Does
had
that
over a
forgive
period of
child
time.
abuse?
No, it does not forgive it, but we need to understand why we do the things that we do. We have to correct our behavior and how we approach
the question is,
correcting our children.
why, Earth, are our children, if this is true, and if you guys accept this definition of abuse, which we're going to get to, because is spanking and discipline a form of abuse? Is it?
No,
I mean, it used to be,
No.
what the Bible say? Spare the rod?
Spoil the child.
Do what?
Spoil the child.
All right, then. So is spanking and discipline a form of abuse?
Well, the Bible also says an eye for an eye, and then in the New Testament it says turn the other cheek. So I don't think we want to look at the Bible for everything.
But that's not talking about children.
But
That specific verse that Bishop just read into our hearing or quoted is
Is this a set or is this church? Is this a set or is this church?
No.
I don't think it's Sunday.
No, but church.
I don't think
what
this
we
is a
learn in the
church.
Bible
Well,
governs
it
our
does
lives.
come on
It
Sunday,
governs
so you're wrong.
It governs
This
our
might
life.
be a rerun on
It
Saturday.
governs our lives, not just on Sunday,
But
not just within the four walls of a
The
church.
thing that we have to look at is we have to look at, you said, our unique circumstances. We need to look at the fact that the violence that has riddled our community, the violence that is in our homes with domestic
Is
abuse and
spanking
all
and
of that.
discipline violence?
You know, we need to question, are we teaching our children to be mean by spanking them? Because guess what? Black children have to be taught to be more humane than other children in order to save our families.
Oh, that's
We
insane.
have to become
Now-
more humane, more
I don't
compassionate,
think it's the
more
children.
sensitive
I
to
don't
our
think it's-
fellow
I
man.
don't think it's
and we
the
need
children.
to ask ourselves the question,
That's the
if
way you
we
get
teach
killed.
our
And
And you'll
It's
say
not
that,
the
and you'll say
children.
that until your kid goes oops upside
You know
your
what?
head one
If
day.
we teach our children that violence is the way to curtail and control your behavior instead of teaching them to have an inner set of right and wrong in their heart, we are the problem.
It is not the children that need to correct their behavior. It is the adults who are having these children.
So you're saying
we are messed
spanking?
up
Wait,
adults.
are you saying spanking is child abuse?
No, I think that every.
Whoa, that's
I
what
think that-
Donella's saying.
Well, I
We're
don't know what she's
teaching
talking about.
We're
I've
teaching our
spanked
children that
mine.
violence
Wait a minute,
solves
Donella
problems.
says child abuse that spanking is child abuse. You
I don't
disagree?
agree. I don't
Why?
agree
Why
with
do you
that because
disagree?
I think that everybody sometimes need a good swift
Well, tell
smack.
her that.
You need a good swift smack to your behind to get you back in line.
I think that's antiquated. I think it's
Oh!
old-fashioned.
Wait.
I think it reeks of the slavery teachings that we've gotten. I'm going to smack you to keep you in
know
line.
the problem?
You
I
don't
think
tell
it's
me
not
you
in
gonna
line
smack them.
like
You
human
smack them,
beings
girl.
need to be.
You don't
You know the
announce
problem
the
in our
smack.
community?
What's the problem?
The problem in our community is we stop spanking.
Thank
That's
you.
the problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
the
you.
problem.
Because
No,
we got
no,
afraid. We got
no,
afraid
no.
of children's services coming in to take our children.
The
So now our
problem-
children are running our households.
The
That's
problem
exactly
in
what
our
happened.
community is that we stopped raising our children. Not
Yes,
we
that
stopped
too.
spanking them. We stopped
That's a
raising
part
them.
of raising
them.
That's a
That's
part
not
of
spanking
No,
them.
because not every child that has been raised has been spanked, okay?
Not
Let's keep
everyone,
it real.
but some of
If you
them.
go to all of the prisons and you ask these people who are in prison, were you spanked as a child? I'm sure
80%
everyone is
say
going to
no.
say yes.
80%
So
say
is
no.
spanking the
What
answer?
poll is that
Is
from?
spanking the
What
answer?
poll- what poll is that
Is
from?
spanking going to keep our teenage girls from
Wait a minute, what
becoming
poll is
teenage
that from?
moms?
Wait a
No,
minute, what
because
poll
you're
is
supposed to
that
do the
from?
spanking before they got to be
Is spanking
teenagers.
going to keep our boys out of prison? I don't think so.
Ooh,
We need to
honey.
reevaluate that.
Hold on here, Reverend. The fact is that when we spank, we did not have these high rates of mental health
Thank
problems.
you.
We did not have these high rates of criminality.
Well.
We did not have these diseases. We did not have this out of
We wore
control
belts and we
sexual
tore our
behavior
pants
that
up
we
on our
see.
behind.
That's
Pulled our
right.
pants
When
up.
we spanked and disciplined our children, we didn't have that.
called
Then wait a minute.
discipline.
Then Benjamin Spock comes in and says, "Don't touch your children," and we have gone crazy
That's
And
ever
look at our
since.
babies
That's
now.
his standard.
Look at our babies
That's
now.
his standard.
Without being
So,
spanked.
John, should we spank and discipline our
Yes,
children?
yes, wear that behind out, but not abuse your
That's a
child.
difference.
No, let me say spanking with a paddle, with an open hand.
She doesn't believe
On
it.
the
She doesn't
behind.
believe it.
But don't
She
make
says
them-
that's child abuse.
On the
Don't
behind
make,
with
but
an
don't
open
make them
hand.
get butt naked in the
No.
bathtub and beat them with a
And
thin
beat 'em
belt.
with a switch? No. That's abuse.
We're not talking about perversion.
My great
That's
grandmother
why
that
made us
happens.
pick our own switches.
Yeah, my grandma made me pick my own switch too, but you
Yeah.
know what? I love my Grammy and I'm better for it.
Did it help you?
Yeah, it helped me.
So getting a spanking
Did it
turned
help
you
you?
around?
Did it help you?
No,
No.
spanking
You
did
see
not
how- you
help
see how
me.
she is, though.
Spanking didn't help me.
The paddling in schools, when they removed the paddling from schools, y'all remember paying paddling in
Oh,
school?
yeah.
I was
Well, I
paddling in
don't.
school. Yeah, well, too bad. And so what happened was, when I went back to class and all my peers
Did
knew,
it help you?
I bet you I didn't do that thing I did in school no more.
The
I
thing
bet you that.
about
She needed
black
paddling.
people
I
is
needed
that
it.
black people
worked.
need to evolve. We need to evolve
To what?
mentally, emotionally. We need to mature. And you cannot have an outside threat of physical violence in order to
Here's the
curtail your
problem.
behavior.
First of all,
you
spanking.
need to have an inner sense
Hold on
of
for a
right
minute.
and wrong.
Spanking should not be viewed as physical violence.
Thank you.
That's the wrong definition.
It is violence.
It should be viewed, Reverend, as corrective
As
behavior.
corrective behavior,
That's
as
all it
disciplining.
is. You're trying
and-
to instill
I'm not buying
discipline.
it. I'm
We
not
have no
buying it.
discipline
my
in our
mother
community.
didn't. My mother, my father didn't care nothing about children's services, and
Thank you.
if I threatened to call them
Neither
or not.
did I.
If you
But
did
if I
something
needed,
wrong,
if I needed correcting, they
got at it.
didn't waste no time in doing so.
But that is the problem. Parents
this
these
is Benjamin
days...
Spock over here.
I think so.
This is
Parents
who
these
this
days
is.
are not correcting their children. They're not raising their children. You've got mothers who feel guilty because they don't have fathers in their homes, so they're letting their children get whatever they want. They're growing up with their children. That's the problem, not the lack of spanking.
The problem is that the control of the parent has been taken
Has
away
been taken
by
away.
these agencies.
Thank you.
That's the
relinquished,
problem.
or relinquished by the parents.
So the parent
Yeah.
don't know
So
what
now-
to do.
So
Just
now the
give it a-
child is the one holding the rod to the mother and whooping her.
Or there's
whooping up on her.
there's no man in the house.
man in the
There's
house.
no man in the house to provide that
Absolutely.
part. What
That
fathers
discipline.
provide.
Thank you.
So wait a
Discipline.
minute. Are we creating criminals? Up next on Khari, Free at Last. Welcome back to Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. The child abuse study pointed out that children who have been abused or neglected are more likely to engage in criminal activity as teens and/or adults and are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide. Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. All right, Earth Jallow,
Yes,
let's get a definition in our community for what child abuse is. Let's see if it holds up the same in the Latino, in the white, in the Asian communities. But for us, what is child abuse?
For us, child abuse should be, you don't burn your children with cigarettes. You don't lock them in cages. You don't deny them nutrition. Okay? You don't mentally abuse your children by talking 12 times crazy to them and calling them out of their names. Those things are child abuse. You protect your child. You don't let sexual molesters and violators, steal the innocence of your child.
That's child abuse. Now, is spanking and corrective discipline and behavior modification, is that child abuse?
Absolutely not.
What do you mean?
Absolutely not.
Donella says that's physical violence.
If you allow your child to just do whatever, then God wouldn't have sent parents. The children could handle themselves if that was the case. Children's brains are not fully developed until they're 24 years old. Do you think that you're not going to have to
Donella says you are perpetuating violence.
I don't care what she said. I tell you what,
she says that children that hold on for a minute. She says that children who get their butt spanks wind up being abusers.
That's not true. My daughters aren't abusers. They're very loving. They have open hearts. They're very caring about humanity. You know why? Because I instilled that in them. I didn't abuse them. I showed them love, and I told them why. I told my children why they were getting it, honey. They knew why they were getting it. It wasn't no,
yes, honey.
I'm just smacking them around or whatever. I didn't hit them in their head. I didn't punch them in their face. I didn't punch them in their chest.
You know
That's abuse. I don't care what she said.
Well, tell her that.
I don't care what you say.
My thing is this: if you choose to raise and this is for everybody, if you choose to do these things with your children, then that is your choice, that is your right, okay? As far as I'm concerned, I don't agree with it, I don't like it, I don't like what we make our black children out to be. Our children are 2 years old and you see them mean mugging, you see people sparring with a 3-year-old, and then we wonder why our kids are so mean and our schools
That's because
are so
there's no discipline. That's the whole point.
But you know what? I'm going to be the one that speaks up and say, you know what? We can move to a new standard that's not based on antiquated methods of controlling a human being.
The standard that you're pushing is Benjamin Spock. There's nothing new about that.
You know
wait a minute, he came out with that insanity 30, 40 years ago, and it's reaped havoc on the planet since then. Has it not, John?
It certainly has.
It's been crazy.
It certainly has, as well as the external pressures and messages that our children are receiving at the same time. We have to counteract that, not just through positive behavior and reinforcement, but when they get out of hand, like my father would tell me, is that a hard head makes a sore behind.
Yes.
And,
but you know what,
well, they didn't say it that nice.
But what a lot of black parents don't realize is that a lot of the behavioral problems that you see black children, having is because of the way we raise our children. When I lived in Japan, their philosophy is that a child is not responsible for their behavior. So the children basically are allowed to do whatever they want without repercussion. But guess what?
In that homogenous society.
But guess what? By the time these children hit middle school, those kids, and I'm not saying I agree with this, they were like little robots.
I got you. But let me say this. Listen, we've been doing 250 years of slavery, over 100 and some years of Jim Crowism, Plessy versus Ferguson, saying you're 3/5 of a human being, et cetera, et cetera. Our whole evolution is completely different from what the Japanese, so you cannot apply the Japanese model to what we're going through.
Yes, you can, because we're talking about the practices that make a child feel whole.
Close.
We're all humans.
You better get the father.
They run their own culture.
They have their own culture.
We're all humans, and guess what? Human beings are all the same.
And they live,
if you raise a child with love and
Donella. That's the problem. Donella, hold on. That's the problem.
In that homogenous society, that's
easy.
fine.
It's
but
easy to do
about
it.
America.
And fathers and
in the
mothers
first
in
century.
the home is what makes a child feel whole when those parents, adults, are healthy.
And that has nothing to do with spanking.
The question becomes... Go ahead. So what, Irv?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with spanking.
And that's my point.
You talked about having a whole child. And I'm telling you that a father and a mother in a home who are healthy adults will have a whole child.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, and spanking is involved.
Okay, no, spanking is not involved. Oh, no, I disagree.
Girl,
you just proved my point before the spanking.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I did not.
Yes, you did. All of the things that we talk about why our kids are out of control.
Why do you disagree with Irv?
Because I know from what I did as a child, I know a couple of those things. I deserved
You needed corrective behavior.
I deserved to have my behind spanked.
What did the spanking do for you?
It told me that this is wrong. I disappointed my parents not to do that thing again. This is looked at as unacceptable behavior.
So
this
why
is not what I do.
so opposed to it?
Maybe because she had a wild, free child life. I don't know.
You know me.
A what?
Did you
Wild,
have
free
a, did you have
childhood. I don't know.
what, was you a hippie
You know,
child?
the thing about it is this.
Hippie
forgot.
adult.
Yeah, I
But
forgot.
look at me. I'm happy. I'm not filled with anger. I'm able to
angry?
love. As a matter of fact, you know.
You
look,
are.
No, I'm not
you know,
angry. I'm
this
passionate.
is my point.
I'm passionate.
This is my point.
Get it
this
together.
This is my point.
Get it together.
This is my
I'm
point.
passionate.
Is she
and
evil
I'm not
and
angry.
full of
This
full
is
of
my
Is she full
point.
of anger?
Is she
Are you
full of
angry?
This is my point.
Are you angry?
See, my thing is this.
She said you full of
hold
anger.
on, hold on. This is the thing right here. How is somebody else gonna tell you about your feelings? You can't tell me about my feelings. You're not my feelings.
Uh-oh.
And so therefore, you have to only speak for yourself. I don't speak for you. And this is
Did
part
you
of
put
the
something
problem.
on the shoulder so we can knock it off?
This is part of the problem right here, is that we don't respect one another when we have differential opinions, differing opinions. We don't respect it. I respect the fact that you don't spank your daughter. Respect the fact that I spanked mine and I will do it again.
I already said that you had the option to do that. Actually, it was you
But
that
don't-
was trying to push your values on me.
No,
I never
I
tried to push
wasn't.
my values on you. You tried to push it on
you
me.
You attacked me personally by saying how I feel. You can't do that because you don't know how I feel.
I said you were
It takes
angry.
I mean, you can't tell me that.
But you feel and you look angry. What'd you
I
say?
don't care
if you
what
see
I
a duck,
look like.
if you see a duck,
I don't care
you
what
call it a duck.
I look like. I'm
You call
passionate.
it- you
Everybody-
said that yourself.
I'm passionate.
You're
Reverend,
Get your
passionate.
language together.
It's passionate.
Get your language
Can you
together.
play peacemaker for a minute?
Well, you know, sometimes I like to see the girls fight.
Jeez.
It's
Christ holy,
exciting.
you
I know.
That's abuse.
I know.
That's our problem.
Another attack on our community up next on Khari. Free at last. Pray for us.
Please.
Welcome back to Khari Free at Last on Bounce23 TV. I'm Khari Enaharo. How real is child abuse in the African American community? Or is just another attack or one more statistic to further degrade and smear our image? Joining me is TalkTainmentRadio.com host Jallow, Reverend John Coates, and Donella Martin-Braddix. All right, Reverend Coates, we have come down to the bottom line. We have debated one way or the other about child abuse.
Argue, fuss.
Yeah. Let's give our opinion of it.
Yes.
Is it real?
Child abuse is real.
In our
because
community, to the
our
extent that they're
community-
talking
in our
about.
Our community is real. And it is extensive in our community because the burden and what black people live under in America, that pressure is real pressure. And it has to come out someplace, and we find it coming out in many places, in sexual abuse and physical
How
abuse,
do we
etc.
correct, Reverend, how do we correct this?
Well, we correct it by learning how to lessen the pressure on ourselves, how to escape the pressure positively outside of drug and alcohol abuse. We need to create bridges of healing in our community.
What words, Jallow, should we be saying to our children on a day-to-day basis?
You are brilliant. You are a genius. I used to wake my daughter up every morning for school with that song. I think it's by Nas. You are a genius. And every morning, that's what she would get up to. You have to tell your children that they are beautiful even before they leave the house, so that on the way to school, no man or no boy can tell them that and get them off kilter.
Wait. You sang Nas to your child. Okay.
No, hold on. See,
Pardon me?
it's a song that he has with
Did you sing a
children.
little Tupac too?
It's a,
Little NWA.
But anyway,
See, there go the boys.
No, there you go. There you go. See?
Yes,
See, too easy.
absolutely.
Right.
Because so there again, we have to put positivity into our children. We have to tell them that they're beautiful, that they're loved. We have to show that to them.
Okay, here's an
every
example
day.
of where I want something to change. When you walk down the street with that child, when you stand on the curb with that child, you put that child on the inside
That's right,
of
on
you.
the
Do
inside.
not walk down the street with your child way ahead of you,
Or way behind
on the
you.
outside of you,
Or way
way
behind
behind
you.
you.
I mean,
that
you see
to me
but
is child
You
abuse.
see
Yes.
too many little kids, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, just running loose.
Running
with
loose.
No adult.
No
adult.
adults
On
inside.
busy, on busy
Now
streets.
that is abuse.
On busy streets.
Not
Yes.
strapped in the car seat, and their car seat weight. That's
So we
abuse.
want all this behavior to stop. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
John?
We have to stop.
Tell them what you want them to do about that.
I want you to stop it.
Yeah, and tell them how.
Well, the way you stop it is that if you don't know better, you seek better. And it's not for government to train us in parenting. We need to come together as communities, as brothers and sisters, and then give each other the type of advice that we need in order to survive and live better.
Donella, what's your message to women who are engaged in these kinds of behaviors? What do you want to say to them?
My message is you have to get yourself together. You've got to be a real adult. When you are in control of your life and in control of your decisions and you are in charge, that means you're also in charge of your children. And one of the biggest problems that I see is not the lack of spanking, but the fact that a lot of women and some men are just not in charge. Okay? They're out of control, okay? They're trying to feed their, insecurities and hurts, by shopping addictions, relationship addictions, television, hip-hop, all these distractions that keep them from growing and developing as a real mature adult. And the children know this, and the children, you don't have control of yourself, how can you control your child?
The children really matter in our community anymore. It used to be a time when everything revolved around the children. Reverend, do children matter anymore?
To some parents, they do, but based on how things look in our community and how our children
They're just
look,
throwaway
the way our
population.
children look is as if we have just thrown them away.
Quickly, what do you mean how our children look?
Well, our children aren't even dressed in a civilized fashion anymore. Pants hanging down, everything saggy, everything dark, everything gray, hair looking raggedy, just no.
Totally unkept.
Just totally unkept.
Totally unkept, and that bodes not for a good future. Thanks to TalkTainmentRadio.com host Earth Jallow, Donella Martin-Braddix, and the Reverend John Coates, and thank you for watching Khari, Free at Last.